The business news headlines is brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. EU opportunities, trade diplomacy, and big pharma shakeups. Hello and welcome to CBX Business News for the final day of July 31, 2025. I'm Yunil Wood. Thanks for joining us. Coming up locally, head of the European Union delegation is urging Caribbean countries to leverage the EU partnership agreement. On the regional front, Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley calls for a strategic trade roadmap between Africa and the Caribbean ahead of the Addis Ababa summit. And on the global stage, biotech giant Moderna to slash its global workforce by 10% as demand for COVID-19 vaccines continues to decline. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after our first break.
Let's all get fit. This summer's a drip. Hip dips and split. Power in the mind, let's get healthy with it. Sometimes the body's so hard, but the body wants it. And then your head is so hard, and it's so like this. So we gotta go 1, 2, 3. One more now. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. One more now. 1, 2, 3. One more now. 1, 2, 3, go!
Are so much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
The local news is brought to you by Darriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with the latest update on trade development locally. Head of the European Union EU delegation to Jamaica, Belize, and the Bahamas, Dr. Urja Ascola, is encouraging Caribbean countries to leverage trade opportunities under the EU-Caribbean Economic Partnership Agreement. Speaking at the opening of the Caribbean Investment Forum CIF 2025 on Tuesday at the Montego Bay Convention Center in St. James, Dr. Ascola says agreement is firmly rooted in a rules-based trade deal covering trading of goods, trading services, investments, intellectual property rights, and sustainable development. She pointed out that the EU remains the most open market for Caribbean goods and exports. There are no tariffs, no quotas on any goods made in this region to the extent that they come from the Caribbean eco-partner countries. In this vein, Dr. Ascola highlighted that the agreement allows for significant trade advantages. The duty-free, quota-free export opportunity also means that if businesses invest in production facilities, for instance here in Jamaica, they can export the products manufactured or processed to anywhere in the EU. She added that They are not talking about a small market. They're talking about 27 countries, 450 million consumers, noting that in 2024 in Jamaica, the EU was the second most popular destination for Jamaican products and exports, second only to the United States. In the wider Caribbean region, the EU is also ranked as the #2 trading partner, Dr. Ascola said. She also encouraged businesses to look to Europe for quality imports. As the financial landscape increasingly embraces digital platforms and more Jamaicans adopt these solutions for daily transactions, JN Bank has launched its latest solution, the JN Pay Wallet, to empower all citizens to participate in the expanding ecosystem. Ricardo Distant, Chief of Branches and Digital Channels at JN Bank, informed that the JN Pay Wallet, which was designed by JN Bank's sister company MC Systems, will further the bank's effort to eliminate barriers to financial inclusion.
I think it's a great time, for us, especially as a country continue to push the digital agenda. But more importantly, we're really empowering the average Jamaican. We have heard the complaints about the long lines to get in the bank to open bank accounts, even though they did the simplified due diligence. With the wallet, there's no line. All you need is a TRN, an email address on your phone with this app. Bam, you don't have a wallet. Then you can go to any of the smart AVMs, cash in.
He explained the various transactions that customers can conduct with this wallet.
We're going to be adding more age. We're going to be adding agents as well eventually. Um, from there, once you have money in your wallet, you can pay bills to phone top up. You can also do transaction with other individuals, whether they are using a JNPay wallet or another provider wallet. And more importantly, if you think about the small businessman that is on the road, this is a safe way. You don't have to carry the physical cash, especially if you encourage your clients to download a wallet of their choice and can transfer money to you as well.
Chief of Branches and Digital Channels at JN Bank, Ricardo Distant. The JN Pay wallet allows users to access the central bank digital currency CBDC Jamdex to transfer funds as well as deposit to and withdraw from a JN Bank account and a JN Bank Smart ATM. All transfers made via the wallet are free of charge to users. A major advantage of the JN Pay wallet is that unlike the traditional ACH or RTGS transfer systems, which have cut-off times and aren't available on weekends, it offers instant 24/7 access. This means the average Jamaican is no longer limited by time or access to physical banking infrastructure, Mr. Distant noted. He said a standout feature of the JN Pay wallet is its third-party cash-out option. The feature provides users with the ability to send a transfer number via SMS to whomever they choose, so they can collect cash at any JN Bank Smart ATM without a bank account or debit card. Impressive. 3 companies, New Panda Food Limited, Bodyscape Rejuvenation Center, and Castilia Funny Club Entertainment were recently prosecuted for breaching Section 56(5) of the General Consumption Tax Act, GCTA. The charges were brought by Tax Administration Jamaica's TAJ Intelligence Investigation and Enforcement Unit, IIEU, working alongside its legal team. The Act states that a person not being a registered taxpayer who collects tax commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction of a resident magistrate's court to a fine not exceeding $5 million or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 12 months or to both such fine and imprisonment. The court was informed by representatives of TAJ's legal unit that during the period February 28 and March 12, the taxpayer New Panda Food unlawfully collected GCT from its customers while not being registered to do so. Consequently, 2 charges were brought against the company on July 23. New Panda Food, by way of its director, Dong Wang, pleaded guilty to both counts in the Sutton Street Tax Court in Kingston. Counsel representing New Panda Foods stated that as part of their plea mitigation, the company was given bad advice and has since been registered. It was sentenced to a total of $1 million, and failure to pay the fine would result in the director facing 60 days imprisonment. Regarding body scope rejuvenation, the court was informed that on February 26 and March 8, the entity located at Mannings Hill Road in St. Andrew unlawfully collected GCT from its customers while not being a registered taxpayer. It was therefore charged with 2 counts of collecting GCT due to the fact that they were not registered to do so. Through its director, Chantel Lee Barrett, the company pleaded guilty on July 23 to the offenses and was charged $3 million for the offenses. If it doesn't pay, then the director would face 90 days imprisonment. The fines were subsequently paid. Now to Montego Bay businessman Wellington Americo Castillo Guerrero, trading as Castillo Funny Club Entertainment, who pleaded guilty in the St. James Parish Court to 12 breaches of Section 56, Part 5 of the GCT Act for collecting GCT without being registered. The court was told that during the auditing process, anomalies were discovered by the team, which uncovered significant underreporting. The matter was subsequently reported to the IIE unit. TAJ informed that for 2020 to 2022, the taxpayer-provided entertainment services for several hotels in St. James and Trelawney. He collected approximately $15 million in GCT whilst being an unregistered taxpayer and was fined $17 million for the 12 offenses. The fine was subsequently paid. The price of all categories of fuel except cooking gas will decrease starting today. Each liter of 87 and 90 gasoline will sell for 78 cents less, while automotive diesel will sell for 25 cents less. Each liter of ultra-low sulfur diesel will also decline by 25 cents. Kerosene will cost 59 cents less. However, the cost of propane will increase by 94 cents, while butane will increase by 65 cents. Next, the foreign currency trading news. At the end of the last trading day in July, the US dollar is selling for $161.25, the Canadian for $116.74, and the pound sterling for $216.52. The going rate for the euro is $187.97. Next, we go to trading news from the Jamaica Stock Exchange. 108 stocks traded on the JSE Thursday, of which 73 advanced, 22 declined, and 13 traded firm. Leading the winners were Kintyre Holdings, CAC 2000, Iron Rock Insurance Company, and Stanley Motor Ordinary Shares, while the losers were led by Jetcon Corporation, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, One Great Studio Company, and Proven Group US dollar. Now the main index advanced by 1,214.05 points, or 0.39%, to close at 308,603.07. The junior market index also advanced, but by 85.58 points, or 2.50%, to close at 3,511.03. And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by Carrie Chris, Regional Ratings, Global Standard. For our Market Education Feature today, we'll be telling you about the term border protection. Border protection is the act of taking measures to secure and regulate the movement of goods and people across national borders. It includes preventing illegal activities, protecting intellectual property, ensuring national security, and accommodating legitimate trade. All countries have a customs administrations unit whose role is to oversee and control the movement of goods across their borders and implement import and export regulations. For instance, in Jamaica, there is the Customs Agency Risk Management Unit. This unit is responsible for planning, organizing, and implementing both long and short-term strategic risk initiatives aimed at identifying imports and exports that pose the highest risks of non-compliance. This approach helps to ensure the efficient processing of legitimate cargo. The market education feature was brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards. And that's it for market education feature and the end of the local segment. Please come back with us. The regional business news is up next. The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back. We go now to news from across the region. With just over a month to go before the second African Caribbean Heads of State and Government Summit in Addis Ababa, regional leaders and business giants are pushing to turn sentiments into action, starting with a proposed Africa-Caribbean free trade area, stronger private sector collaboration, and the removal of long-standing visa and logistical barriers. Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley is calling for practical tools to drive Africa-Caribbean trade, emphasizing the need for clear, accessible information to support investment and commerce. She was speaking during a panel discussion at the recently concluded 4th Annual Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum panel in Grenada.
Perhaps what is missing more than anything else is the information platform that is necessary to allow individual investors, individual traders to be able to make decisions. And I hope that one of the things that will come out of Addis Ababa in just over a month is the creation of that platform. I've always said that where we have banks that investors are familiar with, that's the first step to make them comfortable.
Prime Minister Mottley is also calling for a concrete roadmap to link CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, with the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA.
Bottom line, that we start to drill down into the details of what will make it possible to link our own single market and economy in the Caribbean with the Africa Free Trade Area, and then equally how we provide the information platform that will allow individual investments to move, as well in particular in the financial services sector, in banking and insurance.
Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley. Guyana and Colombia have taken a major step toward deepening economic relations with the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding MOU between the Guyana Office for Investment, Go-Invest, and Pro-Colombia, the Colombian agency responsible for promoting tourism and foreign investment. Go-Invest's Chief Investment Officer, Dr. Peter Ramsaroop, welcomed the move, noting that Colombian companies have already begun establishing operations in Guyana.
We've been working with the Colombian government and the investors over the last year or two, we have seen companies from Colombia come into Guyana, set up operations. We are proud to know that there's a direct flight now from Colombia to Georgetown, makes it easier for travel. And we really look forward to the expertise that your private sector brings to Guyana.
Go Invest's Chief Investment Officer, Dr. Peter Ramsaroop. The MOU is expected to support the expansion of Colombian business interests in Guyana and to promote joint ventures across industries such as infrastructure, energy, agriculture, and logistics. In all the news, the Central Bank of the Bahamas is ramping up efforts to modernize the country's financial infrastructure, with Governor John Roll announcing plans to implement a nationwide fast payments system within the next 2 years. Speaking during the bank's mid-year economic briefing on Tuesday, Governor Roll says the initiative will allow businesses and individuals to make instant money transfers between banks and financial institutions 24 hours a day.
We've given ourselves a target in the next 2 years to transition the Bahamas to fast payments, which means, in the simplest way of translating it, that the population more universally are using their smartphones and other technologies to send and receive payments in real times across the digital wallet space and the bank deposit space. So we think from a revolutionary perspective, that is going to accelerate the digital currency use as well as other digital payments use, because it's going to push all of our financial institutions in the space of providing the mobile apps for peer-to-peer and P2P business transactions.
Governor of the Central Bank of the Bahamas, John Roll. And from Bahamas, we go to Trinidad and Tobago for trading news on the TTSE. 23 securities traded on the TTSE Thursday, of which 7 advanced, 5 declined, and 11 traded firm. Leading the winners were NCB Financial Group, Prestige Holdings, JMB Group, and First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, while leading the losers were Guardian Media, National Enterprises, Point Lisas Industrial Port Development, and Massey Holdings. Other results include the All-TNT Index declining by 0.88 to close at 1,456.81. The Composite Index, however, advanced by 1.92 to close at 1,007.28. And the Cross-Listed Index also advanced but by 0.69 to close at 73.69 and still at 100.27 is the SME Index. We go for a quick break, but please stay with us. Nielsen Rose is up next with the International Business News segment.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. In the international news today, China's economic activity slowed sharply in July, with the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) Composite PMI Output Index slipping to 50.2, down from 50.7 in June, the weakest reading since April. The data signals waning momentum as the country braces for broader U.S. tariffs and grapples with domestic disruptions. The manufacturing sector contracted for the fourth straight month, with the NBS manufacturing PMI falling to 49.3 from 49.7. output growth decelerated, and both new orders and foreign sales posted their steepest declines in 3 months, reflecting fading export surges and sluggish domestic demand. Input costs rose for the first time in 5 months, while selling prices continued to fall, squeezing profit margins. Meanwhile, the services sector also lost steam, with the non-manufacturing PMI edging down to 50.1, its lowest since November 2024. New orders and foreign sales contracted further, and employment remained weak. Although input prices rose slightly, selling prices declined, adding to the margin pressures. Officials attributed part of the slowdown to extreme weather, including torrential rains and record heat waves that disrupted activities across several regions. Externally, China continues to face stiff headwinds from 50% US tariffs on key exports and weakening global demand amid escalating trade tensions. Both the Federal Reserve and the Bank of Canada held interest rates steady in July, signaling a cautious stance amid rising global trade tensions and signs of economic moderation. The Fed kept its benchmark rate at between 4.25 and 4.5% for a fifth straight meeting, but 2 governors dissented in favor of a cut, the first such dual dissent since 1993. Policymakers noted a slowdown in U.S. economic activity in the first half of the year, shifting from earlier views of solid growth. While unemployment remains low and inflation elevated, the Fed emphasized uncertainty in the outlook and reaffirmed its data-dependent approach, especially as the trade war threatens progress towards its 2% inflation target. Meanwhile, the Bank of Canada left its policy rate unchanged at 2.75% for a third consecutive meeting, following a series of cuts totaling 2.25 percentage points. The BOC cited the unpredictability of U.S. tariffs as a key challenge to forecasting and policy guidance. Despite resilience in employment and optimistic H2 growth projections, Canada's Q2 GDP is expected to contract due to a slowdown in export orders. Inflation is projected to stay near the 2% target over the medium term. Moderna has announced plans to reduce its global workforce by approximately 10% by the end of 2025, citing declining demand for COVID-19 vaccines and ongoing market uncertainty. The biotech firm, which had around 5,800 employees globally at the end of 2024, expects to operate with fewer than 5,000 staff by year-end. The layoffs are part of a broader cost-cutting initiative aimed at saving $1.5 billion by 2027 through reduction in R&D, manufacturing, and supply agreements. The move follows disappointing first quarter vaccine sales and a more than 20% drop in the company's stock price this year. Despite the cuts, CEO Stephanie Bancel highlighted the company now has 3 approved products and up to 8 more in the pipeline over the next 3 years. The U.S. Personal Consumption Expenditure PCE price index rose 0.3% month over month in June, marking the largest increase in 4 months and matching market expectations. This follows an upwardly revised 0.2% gain in May. Goods prices climbed 0.4%, up from 0.1% in May, while services prices maintained a steady 0.2% increase. Core PCE, which excludes food and energy, also rose 0.3%, its strongest monthly gain since February. Food prices increased 0.3%, and energy prices rebounded with a 0.9% rise after a 1% decline in May. On an annual basis, headline PCE inflation accelerated to 2.6%, up from a revised 2.4% in May and slightly above the expectations. Core PCE inflation held steady at 2.8%, with May's figures revised up from 2.7%. As the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, the latest PCE data may reinforce the central bank's cautious approach to future rate decisions amid persistent inflationary pressures. And those were your international business stories. After the break, join Neil for your recap.
Welcome back, and now to recap our top stories. Locally, EU delegation head urges Caribbean countries to leverage EU partnership agreement. On the regional scene, Barbados Prime Minister pushes for Africa-Caribbean trade plan ahead of Addis summit. And on the international scene, Moderna to slash global workforce by 10% as COVID-19 vaccines demand decline. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of Nielsen Rose and the entire production team, I'm Yanil Wood, wishing for you a wonderful Emancipation Independence weekend. Please stay safe on our roads. And thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.